sure that these players have run into each other a number of times. So typically, you would find these two players playing a legacy event given the option, but both players playing standard here. Joe Lossett previously, he did just play the Pro Tour, so he has some experience in this current standard. Some experience with the current standard, certainly playing at the highest level there. And Chris Anderson has this blue-red control build that he likes for this kind of matchup, so now we'll kind of see that in action. I have to assume that Chris's playtesting suggests that this is a very good matchup for him.
Yeah, that would be my guess here as well. If you're going to play something like blue-red control, I would assume Chris Anderson to be very good in this matchup, and probably fine against Marvel as well. Spencer Garnier on their team playing Grixis Delver this weekend, so defeating land still last round, not playing. We start out here over on standard, but players trading land drops as they start here. Certainly playing Chris's pace. For Joe, it's 2 lands, no spells just yet. Both players on 6-card hands. That's going to explain some of the starts here. Joe has his first play. It looks like it's going to be Diregraph Colossus. And Chris is going to cycle Hieroglyphic Illumination. Let it resolve, then Magma Spray it.
Yeah, he already had a Magma Spray in hand. Likely would have liked to have drawn a Censor.
Yeah, he doesn't have the 4th land drop, so I think he was already committed to cycling that, so might as well do it before making a play. You see Chris passing back. Joe going to play another Colossus. Now that first Colossus is exiled, so it's not going to be a 3/3, just a 2/2 now. Holding priority, he'll make Dread Wanderer and get another zombie. So there's not really a window for Chris to Magma Spray here without giving Lossett that zombie.
And with the way the board's developing, Chris would certainly rather have a Sweltering Suns, but just 2 copies of that in his deck.
He does Magma Spray away the second Colossus. And actually, he's holding with Dread Wanderer on the stack. And it looks like he's going to Essence Scatter the 2/1. That puts it in the graveyard, a spot where it actually can come back from. But
it'll take a minute. Joe still has a few cards in his hand.
Draws a Plains. Of course, Joe Lossett, so we're going to get the revised. And we're going to see Liliana's Mastery. So this is the 5-mana Anthem that makes 2 zombies. Or it's also a target for Negate.
And Negate seems very well positioned in standard right now. Your opponent is likely to be casting Liliana's Mastery, Gideon, Aetherworks, Marvel.
Chris cycles Censor trying to hit a land. Still cannot, though. He'll pass. He has in his hand Torrential Gearhulk, Glimmer of Genius. If Chris can hit land 4, he should be able to chain his way up to 6. The question will be how much more pressure Lossett has. He'll make a Crypt Breaker. That's going to resolve. There's looks like 1 castable card still left in Chris's hand. Joe will activate Shambling Vent and attack for 4. Anderson goes down to 14. There is a Harness Lightning in Chris's hand. We'll see what he goes for. It looks like Crypt Breaker.
Crypt Breaker is just an engine unto itself.
Yeah, I suppose if his plan was to chain these Glimmers and Gearhulks, and Joe got to do that, have a Crypt Breaker in play the whole time, it may just not be enough.
Right. Turns any of the cards in your hand into 2/2s. In particular, Joe's not looking for any more lands. And you can just start drawing cards with it once you have 3 zombies.
And there's the 4th land for Chris Anderson. So now his Glimmer of Genius is online. And he's really not taking that much damage. Joe hits for 2. We'll play Dark Salvation for 2. Looks like Chris has his hand 3-card hand is Negate, Glimmer, Gearhulk. So he has to decide whether it's Glimmer or Negate here. It's hard to pass up a Negate if that is indeed his card.
The fact that he's missed so many land drops has put his life total relatively low. It's hard to just stare at 3 zombies.
Right, so now he, fortunately for him, draws a land, so he still makes land drop 5 despite not being able to cast the Glimmer. Which means the set goes for Liliana's Mastery again. This time Chris doesn't have the luxury of that Negate, so it's going to resolve.
Yeah, that's bad news. That's Mastery with upside.
Yeah, here's a swing for 3. Anderson goes down to 9 in the face of 9 damage from Joe.
Be looking for Sweltering Suns here pretty hard.
Yeah, Glimmer of Genius. Hieroglyphic Illumination and Negate are the 2 cards to scry. I don't know if he wants either of these.
Those are both pretty bad in this board.
Yeah, I'll put them both to the bottom. Looking for Sweltering Suns. Well, actually, it looks like he wants one of them on top. Maybe the Illumination. I guess he can just cycle the Illumination. And that's what he'll do. Draws Censor. Does not have an untapped land. He has Disallow. Passes. He has Disallow, Censor, Gearhulk, but he's facing down lethal.
Yeah, all he can do is animate Fumarole and block one of these.
All right.
That's not going to work, though.
No, Joe has Fatal Push. And for Chris, missing a lot of land drops might end up costing him the game here. An activation of Shambling Vent from Lossett. Here's a swing for 11. Chris will attempt to block, but we're going to go ahead and see Fatal Push take care of that. So game 1 actually goes to Joe Lossett with Black-White Zombies. Picks up the win. Now, from that game, it did go Joe's way, but watching the decks play out, it feels like Chris is really well positioned for this.
He has a lot of great tools. I can't help but wonder if his deck might be a little bit land light. He does have all these cyclers to help him find stuff, but it's just 25 lands here.
Well, yeah, he has 25.
Typically, I like to see 26 or 27 in a deck like this. But yeah, we're going to go to the sideboard here. Chris has 3 Dynavolt Towers, 3 Dragon Master Outcasts, 2 Dispels, 2 Summary Dismissals, 2 Thing in the Ice, a Negate, an Ether Meltdown, and a Sweltering Suns. Dynavolt Tower makes a good amount of sense. Just a way to generate card advantage over time. You can deal with these creatures. Certainly on the play, you're able to leverage that pretty well. You can expect that Joe's going down on a removal. Depending on how you want to dance that dance, Thing in the Ice could be very impactful, or it could be really bad.
So while we know Sweltering Suns to be good here, I'm interested, how do you feel about Dynavolt Tower? I know it's generally good against creature decks. Joe plays a creature deck, but Black-White Zombies isn't... Its creatures don't die very easily, you know?
When it comes to keeping pace with Dark Salvation, Dynavolt Tower is a tool that helps you do that. It's a little bit slow, but you just have to keep up on cards in a meaningful way. Casting a Hieroglyphic Illumination is not very meaningful in this matchup, so just charging the tower seems pretty strong here. And we go to Joe's side of things. He has 4 Transgress the Mind, 2 Declaration in Stone, 2 Liliana the Last Hope, 2 Lost Legacy, 2 Scrap Heap Scrounger, a Selfless Spirit, a Grasp of Darkness, and an Anguished Unmaking. Scrap Heap Scrounger is reasonable here, even though Chris is heavy on Magma Sprays. There's a lot of targets for Magma Spray, so the card is still totally fine. Transgress the Mind to deal with a lot of these high-impact spells from Chris's deck. That seems really good. And Selfless Spirit is a way to deal with potential Sweltering Suns, so Spirit does seem pretty good here. Doesn't line up particularly well against Magma Spray. You're trading down a mana, but again, he's putting a lot of stuff in the way of that one.
All right.
Good argument for Anguish Unmaking just against control decks in general, because sometimes they have creatures, they'll always have some kind of permanent.
Yeah, I mean, of all of them, this is the one which is, I think, the hardest. Chris really doesn't have permanents in the main.
Yeah, sometimes you'll just have to unmaking a Gearhulk, and that can be relevant.
Well, over in Legacy, Joe Lossett's teammate Rudy Briska also taking game 1, Sultai Delver, beating down Grixis Delver. It's one of the things I know. Sultai Delver, I know is a Delver player. It's your least favorite, one of your least favorite variants. One of the drawing points to it, though, is a lot of players like it because of how it plays in the mirror.
Fatal Push is really good at killing a lot of the creatures that are brought to the table.
All right. So we're here in Season 1 on the SCG Tour as we near our first Invitational in 2017. So we're at the Team Open in Louisville, May 20th and 21st. Now, we still actually have 2 more Opens to finish out the season after this. Next weekend, we'll be in Baltimore to play some Modern. We're playing the format again in June in the Charlotte Open weekends. In this area, June 10th and 11th. So a couple more events to come out before we end the season in Roanoke. It's going to be our first season invitational weekend of the year. It's June 30th through July 2nd, a modern and standard mixed format in Roanoke. Now, if you show up, you can still get playmats for all of our Opens and for our Classics. So depending on the format, for standard Opens and Classics, we give away the playmat of Aether Hub. For modern ones, we have the Kaladesh art for Aether Vial, given away. And then we have Aether Gamble, our legacy playmat, given away here. That's the Eternal Masters Gamble art. So those are given away at each of our events. We still have 2 more before the Invitational, so head on out to try to get one of those.
Yeah, Gamble doesn't especially fit the theme, but it's got jewels and fancy stuff.
The theme of them being kind of like yellow and, yeah, there's like this the color palette going on with them, but I get the point.
Lotus Petal would have been nice.
I'd like that.
It's an invention.
All right, players keeping on 7s this time. Chris Anderson on the play will start on a dual land. Spire Bluff Canal. Last game, the first play we saw was a turn 3 Diregraph Colossus from Joe. That was a kind of a weird game. This seems more on pace. Joe's turn 1 Crypt Breaker getting hit with a Magma Spray. And from a strategic side, I do like the elegance of Chris's deck. It's just, he's going to kill everything and then he's going to draw 2.
Elegant is a word for that.
It is. It's you know, that's not complicated. What are you going to do? I'm going to trade, and then I'm going to play draw 2s.
I think blunt. This deck is very blunt and focused.
Harnessed Lightning. Joe will sack in response so that Chris doesn't get energy. And Chris missing lands again here, it looks like.
His deck's quite good at missing land drops.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. He cycles Hieroglyphic Illumination, finds Censor, cycles Censor. Misses the land drop, says go. With all this one, okay, this is another unfortunate one for Chris. I know you said that 25 seems land light. With 8 1-mana cyclers and 25 lands, he really shouldn't be having problems like this.
But he could be playing 8 1-mana cyclers and 27 lands.
Sure. Transgress the Mind from Joe Lossett.
Ah,
Can't take anything.
a victory for Chris.
Negate, Essence Scatter, Harness Lightning.
And all of those spells are castable.
I guess, fair enough. Oh, no, there was one. It was Disallow. Chris just exiled it. So it didn't miss.
Well, that's a bummer.
Dread Wanderer for Joe Lossett. Well, Chris does find a land. Here's Wandering Fumarole. Wander hits for 2. Anderson down to 18. He does have some time, and between these negates and essence scatters, he certainly has counter magic.
Joe's gotten pretty flooded this game.
Yeah, that's an opportunity for Anderson. If Joe doesn't produce pressure, Anderson's deck will eventually make Gear Hulks.
Mm-hmm.
And there is land 4 for Chris Anderson. So now any Hieroglyphic Illumination or Glimmer of Genius off the top is going to be castable. Those are kind of his big payoffs. Joe hits for 1 again. He has another Transgress. Joe actually knows that this Transgress is dead. So his hand is a Transgress another land. Joe's got nothing going on his side as Cran continues to hit land drops.
Yeah, the Dread Wanderer is still plucking away.
Yeah, it's done a mighty amount of work here. It's done 6. Anderson's down to 14. Joe has Liliana the Last Hope, land, Transgress. The problem is he just knows all his cards are covered by counter spells.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not going to deploy into them. Torrential Gear Hulk drawn by Chris Anderson. It's a target for the Transgress. Dread Wanderer is going to actually deal 20 damage.
Joe does inevitably want to cast this Transgress because he wants to be light on cards when he will have to activate that Dread Wanderer at some point in this game, right?
Yeah, it feels like Joe's trying to overload Chris on one turn. Mm-hmm. You know, he's setting, because he knows between Essence Scatters and Negates, he doesn't want to do one spell a turn. That's just playing into Chris.
And Chris, he peeled some lands. He has exactly 5 mana up here, has 1 unknown. This may be his only window to hit the Torrential Gear Hulk.
Anderson debating. I don't know what he'd be casting here. Oh, he's gonna. Okay, it's an end step Harnessed Lightning. That's neat. The Dread Wanderer. He's just buying himself some time. Mm-hmm. Willing to give away a card to do it. Draws Glimmer of Genius. More than happy to say go with that one in hand, though.
Yep.
Joe draws Scrap Heap Scrounger. That's going to be an excellent draw for him.
And no evidence of something that's going to exile that.
Transgress would be a really strong one here for Joe, and he's going to do it. So yes, Chris has the negate, but boy, it's an awkward time for him to have to be negating.
Mm-hmm. He would rather be glimmering, that's for sure.
Now, I have an interesting one for you. If Chris had main phased his Glimmer of Genius and hit a land, he could have had his cake and eaten it too here.
In theory. See, so there's 17 total untapped lands in the deck.
I guess
there's
if he
3
misses
on the battlefield.
You're saying if he misses, it's just a disaster.
Missing's a pretty serious consequence. And again, he has demonstrated the ability to miss a lot of land drops.
Sure. Scrap Heap Scrounger from Joe Lossett. He'll pass. Draws Magma Spray. Well, yeah, that's good right now. Says go. I mean, it's pretty sweet to have that one, with, especially with the Glimmer and 5 lands. It lines up very nicely. Here's Scrounger. Chris will Magma Spray. Scrounger exiled. Definitely not coming back. Lossett. Liliana. Diagraph Colossus. One more. And what I like about Joe is it looks like he's deploying just enough threats to keep Chris off of Glimmer, which that's nice. You know, he can't play if he plays nothing. If Chris gets to Glimmer, it's a bad spot for Joe. So here's Liliana, the last hope. Asks what's in the graveyard. The answer: Selfless Spirit and Dread Wanderer. I almost feel like Chris needs to draw a 6th land so that he can keep playing removal while glimmering.
Right. Also, a 6th land unlocks that Torrential Gear Hulk, which is not a bad card.
But Joe's doing a great job of applying pressure at inconvenient times that are really inconvenient for Chris.
Joe immediately minuses on Liliana, flips over Cryptbreaker Anguished on making. The choice here is between Cryptbreaker and Selfless Spirit.
Yes, I think he's looking at Cryptbreaker because it's a zombie, and that would therefore trigger Diagraph Colossus.
It also just has huge upside if it survives.
Sure. And this should force a counterspell. If he goes with Diagraph Colossus here. So if Chris doesn't counter, Joe will play Cryptbreaker, get a zombie, tap all 3, draw a card. That just seems like he can't let that happen. Interestingly, Chris, there's some punishment here. He had Negate in his hand, so now he's going to Essence Scatter away the Colossus. It does mean that the Negate is going to die in his hand a bit, as it could have countered the Liliana.
Right.
Joe makes Cryptbreaker. Flip card here for Chris Anderson.
I believe that would be a Thing in the Ice.
Okay, so those have come in. Additional pressure in Chris Anderson. Rudy Briska 2-0 is the winner of the Legacy match. So Joe Lossett's teammate now up. Now after we match, and puts their team up a match, meaning Chris needs to win both these games. Here is Thing in the Ice, 4 counters. And I just love, I just love how Joe's played, how Chris never gets to cast Glimmer. Liliana pluses to shrink the Thing in the Ice. And it looks like main phase Cryptbreaker might go to work, turning some of those lands in Joe's hand into zombies.
Yeah, and Joe has continued to draw more lands, but this is what's really nice about Cryptbreaker. Since it has survived this turn cycle, he can start to solve that problem a little bit.
Yeah, that's really good. Also, remember, Dread Wanderer is actually still in the graveyard for Joe Lossett.
And once he discards this card, he'll be able to actually activate that.
Yeah, he'd need another zombie to do it this turn, but he's still threatening it.
Activate the Dread Wanderer.
Oh, okay.
Not draw cards.
Yeah. So discards a swamp to make a zombie. And then now Dread Wanderer does come out of the graveyard. So on untap, Joe will start having cards for... He has just a lot of value. As Cryptbreaker in play. Fumarole for Chris Anderson. He's got a Liliana back on 2. Anderson's hand looks like a Negate, a Glimmer, and a Gear Hulk.
Joe picked up Scrap Heap Scrounger. That's a solid one.
Well, I feel like this is where there's a lot of pressure right now on Chris Anderson to find a copy of Sweltering Suns. this 1-for-1 removal he has is no longer going to clean up the board.
Right.
Doesn't even have copies of anything like Chandra Flamecaller, so.
There was a period where Chris finding his 6th land would have allowed him to pull ahead with Torrential Gearhulk. Missed that window by a couple turns. Now he needs something a little bit bigger.
Yeah, well, I think what's key is he just hasn't been able to cast that Glimmer.
Mm-hmm.
Each turn it's been too costly. That's thanks to Joe's timing.
Right.
Liliana will plus up to 3. Joe's playing for value on it. Could -2 it, but doesn't want to lose the walker. He's happy with a raised dead every 3rd turn. And end step, looks like we're going to see a Glimmer here. So Joe just passing, no swings here.
Yep. He doesn't have enough pressure to realistically close the game. And by passing, he's able to start drawing some extra cards with the Crypt Breaker.
Magma Spray from Chris Anderson on the Crypt Breaker. In response, Joe's going to discard Scrounger to Crypt Breaker, making a zombie. And then I believe draw a card. It's going to be a good turn for Joe. Yeah, that's fine. So Joe to 19. He's going to keep refueling. Unless Chris finds a sweeper. This, I was kind of mentioning, this 1-for-1 stuff isn't going to work. I guess Thing in the Ice flipping in a lot of ways is a sweeper for Chris.
It would permanently deal with those tokens.
Exactly.
And makes kind of a joke of the Dread Wanderer.
Another Thing in the Ice picked up for Chris. His hand is Thing in the Ice, Torrential Gearhulk, and Negate. It looks like he's going to go ahead and just leave up that Gearhulk as he passes back to Joe.
Depending how combat goes, Gearhulk for Glimmer of Genius is very good. Gearhulk for Magma Spray is just fine here.
Well, remember, if Gearhulk helps flip that Thing in the Ice, then Chris gets Gearhulk back. I mean, this is nice.
It's a combo deck.
I could get behind that kind of combo. That's good. Using my Gearhulk to cast Glimmer, transforming my Thing in the Ice, I'm into that. That's a lot of card advantage there.
It's a good amount of value.
Lands and 2 more lands in Joe's hand. Goodness. He just feels like he needs a Crypt Breaker at all times. Here's a swing for 6 from Lossett. And here's going to be a Gearhulk from Chris Anderson. See what he targets. I hope it's Glimmer.
It's hard to pass on Glimmer. Magma Spray for Dread Wanderer is pretty reasonable here, though.
No, I'm way too greedy to do anything else. no, just Glimmer. And you see Spencer Garnier now also advising on this match.
It looks like they are looking at Glimmer versus Magma Spray, and Chris is not going to appease you.
All right. He'll Magma Spray the sticky creature.
That's called discipline. And then Gearhulk runs in front of the other zombie. Thing in the Ice blocks the rest. Chris takes no damage.
Jonathan Job winning game 1 of Kiki Evolution in Modern, so magic number is 5 wins. The team of Lossett and Job already have 4.
Lossett's in a pretty precarious spot here.
Yeah, this game took a turn for the worse. Liliana will get him back the Colossus. Okay, so Joe will recast Diagraph Colossus. It's a 3/3, thanks to there being Dread Wanderer in the graveyard.
I believe he's been holding a Liliana's Mastery for some time here. Declines to play it because he does not want Thing in the Ice to just bounce those tokens.
Sure. At this point, though, by playing slow playing his board, the issue for Joe is that Chris may not even need to transform the Thing in the Ice anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You see Chris Anderson with Magma Spray in hand. He plays a second copy of Thing in the Ice, and then we'll start to go to work with the Gearhulk.
He has a couple wandering fumaroles amongst his lands.
Yeah, so he has enough mana to activate a Fumarole to block and cast Magma Spray. That's pretty good. That's probably enough defense that he can actually start attacking.
Right. Getting the Liliana off the table would be nice. Not that it's going to do anything on the following turn.
Magma Spray will take care of the zombie token, flipping Thing in the Ice into Awoken Horror, bouncing Gear Hulk back into Chris Anderson's hand. That means Awoken Horror will attack Liliana.
Yeah, this line guarantees that he gets at the Liliana this turn.
Yeah, well, or gets the Shambling Vent, but both are pretty good. The Planeswalker is down. And he'll pass. Lossett opting not to use Scrounger on end step there. He could have eaten the Dread Wanderer to bring it back into play, but not really seeing the point of that.
Right, that's not ideal.
He needs the zombie in the graveyard for this Colossus. It'll be a 3/3. He's got another Colossus. That'll be a 3/3 with a 2/2.
Another land too, so he could activate Dread Wanderer at the end of all this.
I suppose there's an advantage to having land number 9. Joe will do that and pass. But as they both know, the Gear Hulk is back in Chris Anderson's hand now. It's got the second Thing in the Ice going. This is just a great spot for Chris.
Right.
I like the style of this blue-red deck. I hope this is something that continues to be played here. You know, this is, he swings for 9, puts Joe down to 12. Looks like Joe accidentally picked up 2 cards there, so they're going to call a judge just to correct that one. Or actually, he drew the card and Chris had a way to have a response. Okay, so he put it back down. It's going to be Harnessed Light, Gear Hulk into Harnessed Lightning on, there we go, yeah, on Colossus. So now Joe draws for the turn. He wanted to hold priority and upkeep.
And now Joe gets to draw that basic land.
Ooh, the 10th land.
11th, technically. It just discarded one to the Crypt Breaker, right?
It's two to the Crypt Breaker, actually.
Ooh, 12th.
Liliana's Mastery makes 2 zombies. You said before he was trying to play around Thing in the Ice, but you can't do that anymore.
Now you just got to kind of throw everything on the table and hope that
Chris
it's
can't
enough.
flip. Hope that Chris can't flip it.
I hope that you've drawn as many lands as I have, which is impossible considering that you missed your land drop several times this game.
Chris Anderson will cycle a Censor. Draws Hieroglyphic Illumination. That's a card a card out of Amonkhet that I'm actually pretty excited about. Quite the versatile draw spell.
In particular, the way that these early games have gone, when you have to cycle Illumination early to try to hit a land drop, then you just have this inspiration available for your Gear Hulk later. And 4-mana draw 2 is totally serviceable as a castable spell.
And we illuminate into Glimmer of Genius, flipping the second Thing in the Ice into Awoken Horror, bouncing all of Joe's things. I like it when I'm flipping my Thing in the Ices and bouncing my Gear Hulks and flipping it using draw 2 spells. That's doing all the things I like to do in Magic right there.
And my opponent had 3 tokens that are going to go away, and my attack's going to force a chump block with Shambling Vent.
So that was like a 7 for 1?
Yeah, sure.
6, I think 6 for 1. Here's a swing, forcing a chump block. Yeah, this is... I see why Chris likes this matchup. This is... He turns the corner powerfully.
His deck certainly contains the requisite answers to win this match.
Colossus, Dread Wanderer making a zombie from Joe, Shambling Vent, and a pass. But this is not going to do it. It should just take a kill spell from Chris. Oh, zombie came into play tapped, so just an attack, but
Chris also has a kill spell.
Yeah. And we're going to go to a third game. So Chris Anderson puts his team on the board. They need to rally off 4 game wins in a row. They've done 1.
Chris is playing checklist cards, and he has his flip cards sleeved. I think there's too many sleeves. Too many sleeves in this equation. At least use those nice double clear sleeves, you know?
So looking at the sideboard, Chris has gone for his 2 copies of Thing in the Ice. It did not see anything like Dynavolt Tower, and based on the number of cards we saw that game, makes me think he's left them in the sideboard.
We did see a lot of cards.
Other than that, seems like, you know, this is the deck. I think this is the deck and the matchup he wants.
Yes. Things were impressive in that game, though notably, his deck is quite biased for the game 1 of this matchup, and he did lose game 1.
Yeah, he has to beat Liliana of the Last Hopes and Transgress the Minds in the post-board games, which, to be fair, he actually was able to do. And keep in mind, that game, Chris's hand had awkwardness. Remember, he missed land drop 3. Turn 2, his turn 2 was cycle, cycle, miss my land drop, go. And he won from there.
Yep. He has a lot of 2-mana stuff that's very impactful in this matchup. And Magma Spray, of course, is a 1-mana spell. Notably, you can't hit Pull from Tomorrow with Transgress the Mind, which is pretty unfortunate. So Chris has a lot of stuff that makes that a little less impactful than it would be against other versions of this deck previously.
Yeah, Joe slowing down. Did get to have Scrap Heap Scrounger. The value tools that Joe Lossett's deck has didn't seem to be able to overpower in the late game.
Yeah, I think a big symptom of that, big problem there, Joe did get very flooded again. He had a good amount of tools, but he's far from enough to really convert that game.
I think it's interesting. Joe has opted for a black-white. He has no real white. He has very few white cards in his sideboard. Normally we see things like Gideon or some sort of big white spell, but he actually has gone away from that.
Yeah, he's just decided that he's going to cast zombies, and that's the plan.
Yeah.
Small number of white interactive spells.
Makes me wonder if the white splash is still where you want to be then, if that's what you're doing.
Certainly suggests that he thinks very highly of Wayward Servant.
Sure. Joe taking a mulligan to 6 here. Now he'll be on the play. We really haven't seen this game shape up when Chris has curved out with removal yet. Well, he curved out in terms of lands. I guess he's had the removal.
Right.
But Joe's, because he's on a mulligan, he's starting a game at a 2-card disadvantage with, based on how I've seen these first 2 games, it seems like a liability.
Yep. We, in game 2, Joe's draw was a little bit awkward. He did have turn 1 Crypt Breaker, but Chris was able to answer it.
Joe was heavy on lands for sure. We start out Dread Wander and go. And look at Chris's hand. Magma Spray, Harnessed Lightning, lands.
Yeah.
I'm pretty into it.
That hand's real nice.
Dread Wander is going to get exiled from a Magma Spray. Wayward Servant from Joe Lossett. See, I don't know. It's so elegant. Here's Thing in the Ice from Chris Anderson. What is your deck? It is a stack of kill spells and draw spells.
Yep.
And lands.
Nothing fancy here. They have some 5/6s, but it's all right because they're very well costed.
Reminds me, we see Transgress the Mind from Joe Lossett. If you ever go back and look at some of the older Pro Tour Wafo Tapa decks, they would always feel like this. They'd be like 30 kill spells, you know, like 22 kill spells, 8 draw spells, and then like 1 dragon. Like that would be, you're like, oh, I see.
I intend to win games eventually.
Yeah. Hieroglyphic Illumination was taken with the Transgress the Mind. So Chris will just continue to play lands. And Thing in the Ice, not only was it the finisher, but we actually see as a blocker it doing so much work this game. Chris's hand's fantastic. Negate, Magma Spray, Harness Lightning, Sensor. Yes, these all trade.
And the only action Joe has available to is a Liliana's Mastery.
Yeah.
Casting that into negate, that's not ideal.
Chris cycling the sensor. He's looking for a draw spell. I mean, Joe is once again heavy on lands. Disallow picked up for Chris.
Yikes.
So four cards that trade. Eventually, Chris will find a draw too.
Doesn't even need it for a while here.
Yeah, or ever. I mean, I guess. Eventually, he'll just kill enough things that Thing in the Ice will flip, and that will be good.
Right.
Let's see kind of Joe's face. This is no fun. Here's Liliana. That'll get negated. And second game of the 4 games that their team needed completed. Clay Spicklmire wins game number 2. Looks like Chris Anderson's on his way to the 3rd straight win. Their team can run the table. Chris picked up Sweltering Suns that turn. I do like how all his removal spells have cycling as well. That's particularly nice. Liliana's Mastery. This is an interesting one to see if he lets it resolve. So he can counter with Sweltering Suns, but it does mean that in the future, if he lets this resolve, his Magma Spray is getting pretty bad.
Yes.
That's what it looks like. That's what he's going to discuss with his teammate. Should I Suns it or should I disallow it?
The thing about Magma Spray, you can always just have that as an instant speed way to flip the Thing in the Ice.
Sure.
So it still kind of does something.
I guess there still are Scrap Heap Scroungers, but Chris takes the safe option here. He's just going to disallow. So Thing in the Ice goes down to 2.
Yeah, Dread Wanderer also stays within spray range.
Okay. Dynavolt Tower did bring it in.
I figured it was there.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of cards, but again,
Joe's got
Chris doesn't always hit the ones that he wants when he wants them.
Yeah, doesn't matter here. Joe's got 2 lands in hand.
Speaking of not hitting the ones that you want.
Yeah. Well, what I like is that Chris's answers are so clean that, like the Dread Wanderer, that was Magma Sprayed.
The real strength of the Zombies deck, the most powerful card, the way you see the most difficult games won, that is Crypt Breaker. It's the card that's really the glue that holds the deck together. And it's a very solvable problem. If Crypt Breaker is what's pulling the deck ahead, this blue-red deck has a ton of answers.
You see Chris picking up a Gear Hulk. Sure. He doesn't need more cards, but he'll take them. Joe's going to activate Shambling Vent and attack now. He's trying to chip in. Chris hasn't even let a point through yet. And it doesn't look like he's going to start now. Here's Harnessed Lightning on the creature land. He'll get some energy off Dynavolt Tower. Thing in the Ice will go down to 1. The Vent will be gone. Looks like the Wayward Zombie will be blocked. He'll keep the clean sheet here at 20.
Why lose life if you don't have to?
Not even a zombie trigger. Here's a Relentless Dead. That's gonna work. Chris will go to 19. I imagine he's gonna want to Magma Spray away the Relentless Dead.
Yeah.
So Joe's on the board, but this one's looking all Anderson.
So the unfortunate thing is if you Magma Spray it, the Thing in the Ice will flip before that resolves.
Oh, so he's not even going to do it?
Around that.
Oh, that's so good. Here is Sweltering Suns. That will flip the Thing in the Ice into the Awoken Horror. Goes up to 4 energy. And an attack for 7 puts Joe to 14. Land and go for Chris Anderson. It actually looks like it's that Aether Meltdown in his hand.
I believe so.
Okay, that wasn't a Gear Hulk. So 2 kill spells. Looks great. Go back
And
over.
you have to figure that Joe doesn't really have many or any Fatal Push in his post-Cyborg configuration. Thing in the Ice is a problem, but drawing Fatal Push when Chris doesn't draw it is also a problem.
Remember, all those creatures actually went back to Joe's hand off the transform. The Sweltering Suns just kind of did nothing outside of triggering Thing in the Ice. So Joe will get to recast here. It's Diregraph Colossus. No zombies in the yard. They've all been exiled. A lot of zombies here, though. Looks like Wayward Zombie will be the next play. Wayward Servant. So that'll make a 2/2. That 2/2 will hit before the gold card does, though. So there will be no drain on this one. And then it enters the battlefield. And Joe's not going to play. The last card they both know is Relentless Dead. Joe's going to wait till he has another land up before playing that. Or maybe not. No, he'll just cast it.
It looks like that Joe has decided, you know, you're going to kill all my stuff. You can do it later if you can do it now, you know. I'm just going to try to get on the table. If I can kill you first, good for me. If I can't, good for you.
So that token coming into play will drain Chris down. As will the Relentless Dead.
And the thing about having Dynavolt Tower on the table, Chris no longer needs to present a sweeper to deal with multiple creatures very quickly. You know, one removal spell suddenly kills 2 creatures. Because he's already at 4 energy.
Right. Magma Spray on Relentless Dead from Chris Anderson. Up to 6 energy on Dynavolt. Dynavolt will shoot down Diregraph Colossus. Is he going to keep attacking? It looks like he is. Here comes the Awoken Horror. Joe set down to 9. Anderson's hand is Aether Meltdown and Glimmer of Genius. So he's going to have enough fuel to keep that Dynavolt Tower up and running.
That's 6 energy worth of cards. Plus whatever he finds off the Glimmer.
Right. You haven't even seen a Gear Hulk yet. And Chris has got him in a spot where Joe has to commit to the board to try to overrun this removal, but Joe's actually losing the race as he hits Chris down to 13. And this Glimmer should just about do it. It'll put Chris up to 5 energies, you see there. Scries both to the bottom and draws. And hits Essence Scatter, among others. Essence Scatter on Island. Draws, there's the blue Gear Hulk.
What a relief.
Didn't think we were going to get there without it, but now he can breathe easy.
Shut the door on this razor close game.
Here is Torrential Gear Hulk. Targeting Harness Lightning. Harness Lightning the blocker. Make some energy.
Attack for 7 with the Horror. Tower is lethal if that connects.
And it is, so that's going to be, Tower can go upstairs. Game and match for Chris Anderson. So their team needed 4 straight wins, and now they're at 3 as he defeats Joe Lossett in Standard. So it's going to come down to Clay Spicklmire and Jonathan Job in Modern. It was Kiki Evolution versus 4-color Death Shadow. We already saw last round Clay Spicklmire win the match for his team playing Death Shadow. He defeated Andrew Shroud's Storm deck. He's going to have to do it again.
Yep. Stubborn Denial generally going to be worse against this Kiki deck, though countering Eldritch Evolution feels pretty good.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, Death Shadow is a great deck, so even its worst matchups are fine, and this might still be a matchup that he wants to see.
Yeah, he has plenty of spot removal spells, which are generally very good against these value creature decks.
All right, we're going to take you to Game 3. It's already underway. So on the left, we have Clay Spicklmire. He is at 7. Jonathan Job on the right at 11 with Kiki Evolution. So Death Shadow in play. It's a 6/6. For Job, he will make Renegade Rallier. Not sure see if he revolted on it.
He was just shuffling his deck, which looks like a fetch land to me.
Yeah, it's going to target Noble Hierarch. Might be Well, there were no surgicals in Spicklmire's list. When you saw that, I knew that from last game.
This isn't the kind of matchup where you'd really want surgical extraction anyway. Spicklmire with Liliana the Last Hope on 4 on the following turn that can kill that Noble Hierarch. That's mighty powerful.
Job talking with his teammates as to what to see what the Rallier should trigger. He can get a fetch land or a 1-drop. It's going to come down to this game.
Job already has, looks like Stomping Ground in his hand, so at least another land drop. Getting a fetch land back, likely not too impactful. The 1-drops aren't very good against Liliana the Last Hope. Liliana, really powerful, great way to keep up on cards against these Renegade Rallier Collected Company style decks. It'll frequently be able to kill 2-3 creatures, and all the while ticking up to an ultimate that wins the game on its own.
So Rallier brings back a second Noble Hierarch. Now that Job's in that interesting spot of how much you want to attack against Death Shadow. So he can swing for 2 here. Right, the more, like, if you attack them without killing them, sometimes you're actually helping the deck.
Sometimes. There's also the situation, he would love to have this Liliana off the table. It might even attack at that.
Yeah, so it's a swing for 2. Maybe it is at Liliana the Last Hope. No, it's at Clay. Clay goes down to 5. He's going to lead on Inquisition of Kozilek. He's got a lot of cards in hand here, and you can tell right now Clay's very happy with how this is going. He sees coast clear or something like that. He's going to go ahead and use Liliana to kill a Noble Hierarch.
Job's hand, 3 lands.
Clay,
Township, Stomping Ground, fetch land.
Clay goes down to 3. Tar fires the Rallier, swings, and and then cycle Street Wraith. Cycle Street Wraith. Yeah, that's going to do it. So in one hit there, Clay Spicklmire finishes the comeback, and it is the team of Garnier, Spicklmire, and Anderson, after losing the first 4 games, win the last 4 to take the match. They will move to 5-0.
Jonathan Job with the Renegade Rallier, Clay Spicklmire with the Rally.
All right, so second time in a row we see after dropping an early match, it's the team of Anderson, Garnier, and Spicklmire coming back to win, so they are still at the top of the standings. I know. So impressive stuff. We're going to have 4 more rounds to come today, though. So the standings, we're going to see what other teams still remain undefeated among our top ones. Join us when we come back of round 6 of the Louisville Open. Jeff will activate Hissing Quagmire. So Brad will block the land, spend an energy to crack Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot, bringing him now up to 16 energy. But Jeff connects with Grimflare, which means he'll get a trigger. And 3 more. We see 2 lands and a spell. Jeff will keep some of these on top. Replays the land. He lost one off Hissing Quagmire, and Brad draws the Marvel and now immediately taps it. Top 6 cards, gets 1 for free. Does he hit Emrakul? I don't believe so, but he does hit another Aetherworks Marvel, so he can just spin it again if he wants.
All right, yeah, that'll get him 2 energy back. That'll put him up to 2 full activations.
When you have this many Puzzle Knots, oh, the things you can do. So he misses, but here's another Marvel. Pay 6 more energy. Here we go again. 6 more cards. We see Tireless Tracker, Ishkana, Attune, Servant, no Emrakul, but this time he does have the Graph Widow.
Ishkana's solid.
Now swing from Jeff. Brad will take damage. He's blocking Grimflare so that it doesn't get through. Jeff casts transgress for nothing?
He doesn't want to get Emerald and have to transgress himself.
Okay. Brad draws. He'll spend the last 6 energy of Aetherworks Marvel. And now there's an Emrakul in the top 6. Brad's going to go ahead and cast her in the 13-13. The promised end has arrived. And look at Brad, because of all these puzzle knots, is actually still at 14. It feels like Jeff's just been hammering him with creatures each turn. And yet it doesn't matter. So now we go back. Jeff's turn played by Brad Carpenter. And this is why Jeff played the Transgress. Now we see it. There was an Emrakul in his hand, and he wanted to keep it. So a swing for 4 will put Brad down to 10. He actually did this on purpose because he wants to mess up Jeff's next draw.
Yeah, let Jeff have some of these Transgress the Mines, this land.
Yeah, it was Traverse, a land, and Transgress. And Brad, and this is neat, he says put the Transgress, Traverse in the graveyard, and then the other 2 cards, he doesn't tell Jeff what order he's putting them back in.
I think Jeff will figure it out in a second here.
Okay. All right. I just like that. So Grimflayer hits Brad down to 10. The Quagmire traded with Ishkana, and the Mandorak Demon was blocked by Emrakul. So Jeff has to play a tap land, plays Grimflayer, and passes. Now Brad gets another turn. He's going to crack a Puzzle Knot, go to 13, go back up to 5 energy. Aetherworks Marvel is not done.
Not to mention that Jeff's on a 2-turn clock now that Brad is on tap with the Emrakul.
Yeah, Vessel of Nascency, the draw for Carpenter. He's going to go ahead and cast. And sacrifice it. That brings him up to 6 energy, so he can Marvel again if he needs to. Looks at top 4 rather, finds an Aether Hub. Plays it for 1 more, up to 7 energy.
I imagine we'll see an attack and Brad sit on the activation of Marvel for a little bit here.
And there's the swing, Hoagland down to 13. And it's a pass. We go back over to Jeff. 6 lands in play, 7th land, 6 card types in graveyard. He has his own Emrakul. Will Carpenter Marvel in response? Maybe he does it after. We will see. I assume he does something with the Marvel. He doesn't want Jeff to be able to use it. So Jeff passes. No attacks from the Grimflayers. And so Carpenter will spend the Aetherworks Marvel.
Now, Brad gave Jeff land Transgress.
You could have tried to Marvel for Transgress in Jeff's upkeep. And you see there's a Marvel under these cards for Brad. So he'll play the Attune with Aether. That was off Aetherworks Marvel. Brings him up to 3 energy, gets a Forest. Or make that a Swamp.
And Jeff will be able to use this Emrakul to eat Brad's Emrakul. Shouldn't be too much else that he can screw up for Brad here, of course, because Brad doesn't have a lot else going on. He can crack Puzzle Knot and spin that Marvel there.
Transgress the draw from Brad. That's a great draw if you're a fan of Hoagland's. He can have Brad transgress himself.
He has enough mana to transgress away the Emrakul and crack the Puzzle Knot to spin away all of the Marvel energy. Yeah, this looks like this might be Jeff's game here, actually.
Yep, so here's the Aetherworks Marvel, top 6 cards. Lost Legacy. Now this is an interesting one.
If Jeff has some bad spell in his hand, he does have Transgress the Mind, so he can just use this as a redraw.
Well, he can... It's target player, not opponent, so he can have Brad Lost Legacy his own Emrakuls away.
Given that he already has Transgress and he can get rid of Emrakul, I suppose Lost Legacy deals with any potential Emrakul. It looks like he kind of has this locked up.
Well, the danger would be if Brad does something like draws
4th Puzzle Knot.
Yeah, something like that. That might be the only card.